Right. Hello and welcome to another Truth Proof broadcast. It's a live stream this Thursday night in the UK, 7 p.m. And we've got a few things to talk about. Paul, we've got some hot topics as well as people who were involved in the Wolflands film on screen tonight to tell us more about that, haven't we? And can you hear me, Paul?
I can hear you fully. Yeah. All good, Liz.
Yeah. So I'll just check, see if we're live. Yes, it looks like we're live.
I think it's just gone live. I think it's just gone.
Yeah. So, welcome to tonight's Truth Proof. Paul Sinclair and 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝘂𝘁𝗵. And some special guests on tonight as well. So we'll be bringing them in shortly. So a little bit of housekeeping here. For people who doesn't know about the Truth Proof channel. Paul Sinclair. Paul, you're a local researcher to the area of East Yorkshire, and you've written a few books. So if we can go through some of the books that people can acquire, we'll do that now. They're on the truthproof.uk website. I know we haven't got that on the screen, but I know it's in the show description. So if you can just talk a little about what people can do there.
Yeah, well, as you said, there's 5 books, and they're at the back of you, Les, so that and back of me as well. So it's not hard to understand where it's going. Truth Proof 1, and then there's another Truth Proof, so it's 2, 3, and 4, and the Night People. They can be obtained, as Les said, truthproof.uk for the paperbacks, and Don Lodge does website. He puts all reports up that myself and him get, and we've got, I think, over 200 reports now, and they're all original to Truth Proof. So if you want to read some sort of first-hand accounts from people that have submitted information, and it's not just UK, it's we're getting reports from all around the world, really. It's all there, and the paperbacks on the website, as I've said, and Amazon for the Kindles. I'm not very good at advertising myself, people. I'll prefer to just listen to the guests and just get stuck in with what we're going to talk about.
Well, I'll just mention for those who didn't see it at the top of the show, we just mentioned a little topic for discussion today, and these are kind of hot topics, I guess. And it was about the Air Force veteran David Grush. American Air Force claims that the government is covering up evidence of UFOs. And they really are extraterrestrial, and that is seen evidence of secret crash retrieval program. And he alleges the US has even retrieved bodies from other species. So this now has made the mainstream news. I don't think you've had news quite as big as that on the mainstream, but a lot of news channels are picking up on it. So broadly, I guess as we'll go through the show, we'll just ask our guests and everybody on the chat what they think about this and where it's leading up to, Paul.
Yeah, because it's leading somewhere, as we had a doubt. I mean, it wouldn't get as much coverage as what it's getting, and like you said, national news. If they didn't want us to know something, it might be just the big deflate. It might be to tell us something and then find out that what this guy's saying is, we set up for a fall, basically. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but you never know. Well, I'll leave it to you, Les, if you want to introduce who we've got coming on.
Well, we're going to bring in the Revenants. Welcome.
Evening.
Hi, Rev. How you doing?
Yeah, good. You both all right?
Yeah, all good, mate. And as I said, I'll throw that question out to you about the new news and to Chris and the other people. Are you bringing them all on at once, Les?
Yeah, well, we'll just say that Revenant was involved in the making of Wolflands, and his story was actually one of the biggest stories in the Wolflands film. So, welcome to the show, Jeff. We've got Dean.
Evening, all.
Dean.
Evening, you all good?
Yeah,
we're all good at
this end.
Good.
And Dean, you did some filming with us when we was filming Wolflands, Dean.
Yep.
And so we did some night work in the forest all night. If I remember him, in Broxton Forest.
And it needs to be said that Dean, he made an effort I'd have never made. He come on a motorbike in atrocious weather, got stuck in traffic. We nearly didn't get into Forest, and he weren't very well. And you absolutely, that's pure dedication.
9 hours. 9 hours to come up, 13 hours back, and I had kidney stones and was passing blood in every way. You know what I mean?
Okay, and also we're going to add to the stream Chris Wright. Now, Chris Wright, Chris
Good
has been
evening.
invaluable
Evening, Chris.
to the making of Wolflands, as Paul will tell you.
Well, in between a sip of Guinness. Well, no, when Chris got on board with us and started coming into Forest, I mean, it's fair to say you've met everybody that's involved in what we've been doing, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic, and it's truthfully, it's just been an absolute joy to be part of it. To be perfectly honest with you.
Well, I don't think that we could have got through it really without you, and I'm not just saying that. It's been brilliant. You've got us into locations, just like the Revenant has, you know, and you've just brilliant. It's a major part of it. And when we do another, which we've already started, haven't we? I mean, you'll be as involved with that one, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Looking forward to it.
And finally, to add to the stream, we have Chris
Turnow. Hi, Chris. You all right, bud?
Hi, everyone. You all right?
Evening, Chris.
Evening, Chris. How are
Hi,
you?
Jeff. Hi, Chris.
Evening, Chris. You all right?
Hi, Dean.
And Paul, if
and
you
as
can
you know,
tell
Chris
us,
has been in Forest with us
and
helping us. Brilliant assistance, you know, with Wolflands, advice and everything. It's all been good.
and a filmmaker in his own right.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why it were a big help for me anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So, all good. And have you recovered, Chris?
No, knackered.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. For the viewers on the stream, then, Chris, can you tell us what you've been doing the last 2 or 3 days?
The last 3 days, we've been trying to cram probably about a year's filming in 3 days. Does that sound about right, Paul?
It does. We've been leaving clifftops and locations between 11:30 and 12:30 at night, and we've been back on them. Well, I were up at 4:30 and we were out at 5. So I've been tired, and it's been worth it. You know, we've got a lot of information in, and yeah, let's just see how it pans out.
Yeah, it's tiring. You think I'd know by now that you can't do that, and to anyone trying it, you can't do that. You can't do it. I've come back off that 3 days and just thought, I already knew you couldn't do it. I don't even know why. I thought.
Well, you said you can't, but we did it, and I think all you mean is you won't be wanting to do it next weekend, would you? It's not something we'd repeat and repeat.
No, and to be fair, like there's always elements that you can't control. You know, you're counting on a lot of people, aren't you, to make all this stuff happen? You're counting on the weather. You're counting on the phenomena. You're just trying to cram so much into such a short period of time. But you know, I think we got most of it done, didn't we? So we'll see how it goes. It
kind of worked.
So we'll see how we get on.
Okay, well, I'll just say at this point, for the people who don't know, come onto the stream and they don't know really what the discussion is tonight. We have spent, me and Paul have spent 3 years or more, just over 3 years, making the documentary Wolflands. And as you can see, most of the people on the panel were involved in the making of that film. And so, Paul, if you want to just take up from there.
Well, like you said, it's been 3 years. I know COVID got in the way, but it's still been difficult. I mean, and Chris has just said, like, you know, we've crammed a lot of work into 3.5 days, but you know, it's going to be a different type of film to Wolflands. I think you'll be first to say that, Chris, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, you can't make a film like Wolflands or Elusive. Anything that you're looking at. The inclusion, probably, I don't know, around 15, 20 people.
Yeah.
All together, you know, with the witnesses. And when you're trying to, like, the logistics of that are just massive.
And there's personalities. There's lining people up and get. I mean, for me, I don't know if anybody else notices, but Chris just seems a bit quiet. It could just be me, but there's personalities when you're meeting people. We went to meet Revenant. And he's apart from having this incredible story we've never met before, and we've got to guarantee that you're going to actually gel with these people. Do you know what I mean? And it's all a bit tentative because we've got a bloke who's telling us something that's deep and personal to himself, and he wants to know it's right. So you're like, you're not treading on eggshells, but you're being really careful with people at first because it's not being phony, but you've got to form a good relationship with people, and all the way through. Do you know what I mean? And it's just how it is. It's always difficult when you're meeting a witness to something that's off the scale of normal, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know if you caught what we just to veer off that a little bit. I don't know if you caught what we said earlier, Chris Turner. Is that we had a kind of a discussion topic on the whistleblower from the Air Force veteran 𝗣𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵, American Air Force, claims that the government is covering up evidence that UFOs really are extraterrestrial, and that he has seen evidence of a secret crash retrieval program. He alleges that the US has even retrieved bodies from other species. Now, that seems to be making the mainstream news, Chris. Have you got any thoughts on that and where it's all actually leading up to?
Well, just check. Is my audio okay? Is it loud enough?
Yeah,
Everybody else, yeah, fine. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're all, those of us that have been following this for forever. I'm not surprised because this had to be on the cards, but I think most of us are probably gonna not be surprised that they'll leave out one of the key elements of all this, which is the abduction phenomena. I'll be absolutely amazed. I know they've briefly touched on it, or some channels have, but I'll be amazed if they release anything on the abduction phenomena. I think that will only come out when they really, really want to frighten everybody and have full control. But yeah, I think that's the element that none of us are going to hear. I do wonder what's prompted this, to be honest. I expected them to come out with the crash retrieval thing, or is it the drone thing, all that business. But I didn't expect them to admit the extraterrestrial thing so early. So it's a little bit early for me. Maybe something's going on behind the scenes that's prompted that or pushed it forward. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if you listen to those that are a little bit more involved in these elements, like what they call the is it the galactic? What's it called? The Galactic
Federation.
And if you believe in that sort of thing, they'd probably have us think that they're the guys forcing this sort of information. I don't disbelieve it or believe it. Look, what do I know? But Paul and I were actually discussing this the other night about what the agenda is with all this sort of stuff, and we've been in touch with a few people over the weekend that I can't get away from this abduction thing, and I've been trying to give this love and light thing a chance, but the harder I think about it, I can't find any good in it.
No,
I'm just a filmmaker, and a researcher, and I witness, I interview witnesses and that kind of thing. I've never experienced anything, so likes of Paul and other people that have experienced this stuff, it's like, I can't buy into it. I don't know what you think, Paul.
Well, not the love and light aspect of it. I mean, and it's difficult when you've got people preaching that, and that's what it is, preaching it. But they might have experienced that, Chris. But no, I can't buy into it. I think anything that takes people from their homes or comes into people's homes and interferes with their lives, interferes with them physically in the hours of darkness. There's nothing good in that, is there? Not in my eyes, anyway. And like you said, they're not going to touch the abduction phenomena or the abduction aspect of it any more than they'll even acknowledge the cryptid being real. I wouldn't think. But
no.
The big question is why now? Yeah, and I don't know what anybody else thinks. Does anybody want to give an idea on that or views?
Yeah, well, I think you've got to be very careful when dealing with information that's come via any source, especially one that's come from former government, former US Air Force. Unless there happens to be some serious repercussions happen to this fella's life from now on, I would suspect that it's been deliberately leaked. Nothing gets out that they don't want to get out, and they've been lying to us from day one about everything. So why would this be any different?
Yeah, Isn't it? Well, yeah, these things don't exist. That's the track record, isn't it? That we've had staple track record for decade after decade after decade. And then government files are found, government files that, oh, there's no more to be released, but suddenly another batch gets found. But then we're constantly finding out that, do you know what I mean? That these things that they were denying were actually true. So spot on. Why should we believe it?
I mean, it's also the distraction as well, isn't it? So what's that keeping us occupied from? So that information comes out. What's going on behind us? You know, it's like we're all looking at the sky, but a lot of the activity that you see, Paul, comes from the sea.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we're kind of, maybe it's all smoke and mirrors to make us look the opposite way.
Yeah, yeah.
What the purpose is, don't know.
Yeah,
yeah. You make some good points there, Jeff. I'd also add to that it from my understanding, obviously I've not had a chance to look at most of the recent stuff, but it's pushing the extraterrestrial thing, isn't it? They're coming from other planets thing, as far as I can tell. They're not. I don't know whether they're going to be touching on what they are exactly. Do they know what they are and where they're coming from? Because that's obviously the big question, isn't it? That everybody is, you know, that argument's been raging forever and ever. Paul and I were talking about the demonic element of this, or the interdimensional demonic element of this, and you know, going back to the Collins Elite stuff, I don't think they're going to touch that. As Jeff said, it's all absolutely controlled down to the finest detail. So, more of the same, I suppose. And
what are they? You know, what are they? Apart from being alien and using that word, they're alien to everything we know and understand. They're not forced to be aliens from another planet. They could be demonic. They could be demons. We could be just splitting hairs here and just choosing different names for them. Because,
I think the demonic / alien things, that's to do with like society, how you're brought up in society. So older generations will class it as somewhat religious, i.e. demonic, and modern generations, like certainly my kid, he'll be saying that it's alien rather than anything to do with a religious aspect. So
yeah,
it's to me it's the same thing we're dealing with. It's just we keep looking to the liars to give us the answers rather than trying to, because we don't have the resources to do it ourselves, I guess. Yeah. You know, it boils down to money, doesn't it? That's the thing. It's, you need to have that money to put resources into it to try and explore just one avenue of the phenomenon. And there's so many avenues of it. It's, where do you start?
Yeah, spot on. Any views, Chris, Dean?
Well, I think if you just take a look at the likes of us and like-minded folk that are doing what we're doing, and I think that's probably more truthful than a lot of things that we hear in the media. You know, you can't really get any more truthful than yourself getting the stories and the accounts coming in, and then going out to these places, doing the research, spending time there. You know, just immersing yourself in the atmosphere of the place, and then slowly but surely, more stories and accounts come out of the woodwork, don't they, of the local area? And I think that's as truthful as and as close to the truth that you're going to get, I think, really, in a lot of this.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it would not just this channel, but there's definitely a space for more channels like this. Chris's channel, Revenant, I know you're going to start doing some of this kind of stuff. We need more. I know there's no end to it on internet, and you go onto YouTube or anywhere, you're going to find hundreds and hundreds. Well, we need more, and we need what it needs is genuine people who are going to look at these accounts honestly and not look at a satellite flying through the sky and think that we're being visited by people from Venus. We've got to dissect everything and get to what we consider, meat and veg of a sighting, of a report. And because if you can put it over good and in a way that, well, I'm sorry to say this for anybody listening, the way that Joe Public thinks, these guys are being as honest as they can, that they're giving us this information, and these witnesses, they don't seem loopy to me. They seem perfectly rational. The only thing that they're saying that's off the wall is that they've seen and experienced something that it's just not normal. And I think more and more people will come forward. There's people sat everywhere who've all had an experience. And it's opening up for us anyway. I'm getting reports every single day, not necessarily cryptid related, but loads of reports, you know, and there's more to come without a doubt. I mean, it's just how it is. Any views, Dean?
I've got lots of mixed views, Paul, on it. My main thing that I'm doing is I'm questioning, for example, that this information just come out recently with the American chap. I would have thought everything's controlled. Everything, as you already pointed out. Nothing is going to get out if they don't want it to. And I've always wondered what would happen if this information came forward, because I think it may not apply so much in this country, but I think in America, whilst it's still very religious, I think it could have huge implications and huge impacts on society. And more importantly, when we look at the government, how society is controlled, because religion has always been a way of controlling the masses. You want to control or punish the masses, you use religion, you use control of food, and you use control of fuel and resources. That's how you control people on a large scale. The biggest one I would say on the planet is religion. And if suddenly you have proof come forward that aliens are real, well, there's no mention of that in religions. Not really. There are some, but on the mainstream religions, you've got one person who is above all. And I wonder why they're letting this all come out. It's pretty much same as everybody else's. Where is this going? That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, where is it going? And on the subject, just quickly, where you said about more channels, I think the difference here, Paul, is with yourself, Les, Revenant, Chris, another Chris. You're doing this because, and this is no offense, I'm not targeting anyone here, but you're doing this because you genuinely want to know the truth.
Yeah,
you're doing it because you're getting these reports coming to you, and I'm not saying that's for other channels, but unfortunately, there are a lot of channels they're not truly interested, I feel, in the subject matter. They don't want to do what you're doing, which is real boots on the ground. Going out 2 o'clock in the morning when it's throwing down with rain, it's freezing cold. You don't want to get out of bed, but you're getting out there and doing things. Where a lot of these channels, I feel they see something on the internet and they just rephrase it and put a YouTube video up, and all they're interested in is the count, the number going up. How many things have I got? How many followers? So sorry, that's just touching on that subject. Yeah, good question. I can't say with huge amounts of experience, but I can say with some experience due to my ex-work that when they don't want you to do anything, you won't know it. You believe me in no uncertain terms. If they don't want something going out, it's not going out. And I question, why is it coming out? Why is any of this being allowed? And from what's been indicated in the past, America can deal things in a much more robust way, should we say, than what the British do. You know, a lot of places in America, you can get lost quite easy, or the car can break down and they're off. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think you can watch closely, very closely. Yeah. I wonder where it's going. What's the big picture? Why are they allowing all this out now? And it's contradicting themselves. So now you've got the big question of people are going to start distrusting the government. They don't trust them anyway. I don't anyway, I know. But still more distrust. It's a strange one. It's a really strange thing that's going on at the moment. It's interesting.
Yeah,
strange.
And can I just pick up probably where the Revenant and Dean has left off there? Perhaps they're letting all this out because it's like the new religion. That's what the Revenant was, saying. What Dean was saying about religion, and it could be the new religion, which then obviously, then the government can control. It's got more control over that type of thing if it was made into a bit of a religion. Are you with me?
Yeah, they'd never label it as that, though, would they, Les? But I know where you're going with it. I know where
I'm going. Probably some of you guys probably know what I'm talking about there.
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, they talk about you need a big global catastrophic event in order to bring all countries together, as we saw in like War of the Worlds, etc. So by having that or leading up to that, it's kind of allowing that to happen, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's kind of making people go, well, we need to have something that's gonna. We all need to be together. We need the one world army to fight this. We need the one world religion so we can pray to it. Whatever. But it's driving society that way, isn't it? You know what I mean? Without trying to get too political on it.
Yeah, you make a
Yeah.
good point.
No, you're right, Jeff. I think Dean makes a good point, though. I think what I'd add to that is this. If you look at all the research from Jordan Maxwell, other people like him, this alien invasion was always on the cards, and I think they were waiting to play this card when the world started to wake up to the deceit. And I think the last 3 years with various events has done that. And I think they're now playing this card. In my opinion, I'm just looking around and I'm seeing and hearing just people on the street, just general people that being very, very distrustful of those in charge. So, like, as Jeff said, now they need a big event, need something to bring us back under control, and this is the trump card, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, whether people will fall for that, because from what I understand, they've been slowly actually trying to destroy religions very, very quietly and introducing a new religion as science. Science is the new religion, from what I can see. And love or hate religion, or whatever your views are on it, religions do somewhat keep the families together, if you know what I mean. There's structure in it, and there's a lot of some religions promote the family, and as far as I can tell, this new woke religion type science extremism destroys the family. I mean, it's probably getting a bit too deep. This is probably the wrong format for that, but yeah.
Well, it ties in with all the transgender etc. stuff, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Everything that's confusing where we grew up from is all getting now mixed up with it, isn't it?
Yes, and it goes. Yeah. So it's against that. It goes against all religion, really, other than science. And now that kind of science is, you can't even state a fact now without, which is just bizarre, really.
Yeah.
But that's where we're going.
I've got a couple of questions in here, Paul. If you want for me to read these out, yeah. Alex Thompson, question, gents. Any strange presence felt, seen, or heard while filming the documentary Wolfland? So you can open up with that one, Paul.
If I'm being truthful, and we've been all over the place, and we've been to location where Revenant had his experience, and we've been in other forests, and closest thing I think that we got that was strange, and it's perfectly explainable, was that one night at about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's absolutely black, a velvet thick blackness in a ravine with Chris and Rotherham lads. These blue and green things started glowing in darkness. So it's not exactly frightening, but every time we put a torch on them, there was nothing there. We walked over to them and put a torch on, and there's a fluorescent fungus in the forest. I've done a bit of research. It's very rare, apparently, in the UK. So, I mean, we've not said where it is, because no doubt they'll put a site of special scientific interest on it, and we want to go again. So we'll keep it to ourselves. Can you remember that, Chris?
I certainly can, yeah. I must admit, Paul, talking about feelings and yeah, obviously we haven't come across anything whilst filming, but I think the first night in that particular forest, although I've spent years walking down there during the day, I'd never been in there right through the night. Now, was it the fact that because we know of the account and that was in the back of our minds, but the first time we were in there, with Steve and Jimmy, I felt it was a dangerous place to be during the night.
Yeah.
And like I say, it may just be, it's dark, we're feeling a bit, because of what they've seen. But I mean, obviously we've subsequently been in there, but it's still got a different feel to anywhere else that I've been during the night in that particular location.
Yeah, well, I don't think, and I know we Revenant's former job, he'll have been in all sorts of places in night that are dark, but that is the darkest place I've ever been in my life.
It's a rare place. It's a rare spot.
50-foot ravine, and it weren't where we went with you, Dean. It was the other side, and
okay.
We'll try and get in there again. What are you going to say, Chris? Oh, sorry. I was froze.
Yeah. I think what did it for me in the main film we did in that forest was the when the night drew in and you was away from the fire, it was the oppressiveness. Are you with me? So the darkness, it was just pure black. You could see nothing. So it was that. So you felt like everything was caving in on you. That's how I felt.
Well, what did it for me, I'll be honest with you, is that I told Les to take a chair in with him. I'm going to get this out in open now, people. And he said he didn't need one. So I took a chair in, and then he sat on it all night. And I had to stand up, and I could have killed him.
Not daft, dear Les. Not daft.
No, it was a rare place to spend night. We've done it a few times now, haven't we? But we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
I mean, I was going to say that the only paranormal thing that was caught that I'm aware of was that picture of the woman sat on the gate post up at the farmhouse.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that one. Your lad took a picture. And
yeah, so we were. Go on, Paul. You crack on, mate.
No, you know it better than me. You know.
Well, yeah. So we're out filming, and we had my little lad with us, and he was sat in the back of the truck messing about on my phone. When we'd finished filming, got home, looking at my phone, and there's this picture of gate post at the front of the house, nobody there. Next picture that is taken, one after the other. There's a woman dressed in a bonnet, and she's got a long black dress on, sat leaning against the post.
And it's there. I've seen it.
Paul's got the picture. So
it's a very strange one.
Is that
in the middle of nowhere?
Back in 20 seconds, gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Was the post the one where we did when I was asking you what this post was, Jeff? Was that
that'll be the same post? Yeah. Aye.
Maybe
so
that's
Jeff,
what inspired you to come up. Yeah, but probably inspired you to come out with that little quip that you came out with. Yeah, at the time.
This is a gate post, and in Yorkshire we hang gates on them.
Yeah, keep people out.
Yeah,
keep people out. That was it. Yeah. So
before we obviously we want people to ask us questions in chat, but before we get to any of that, I want to just ask Chris something, because due to nature of Chris's job, he gets all of the forests around East and North Yorkshire, don't you? Well, not East Yorkshire, but North Yorkshire. And
yeah.
The cats, Chris, the big cats. You spoke to people about them. Any views? What they're telling you?
I would say these last 2 or 3 years, just before COVID and when COVID hit for them 2 years, the amount of sightings that I was hearing about just rocketed. And I don't mean there was lots and lots, but obviously a lot more than what you would normally hear about in these locations. Now, I suppose for the rest of the country, for years we've had accounts of the predominantly black and beige cats up here. I've had reports of lynx, and personally I've never seen one, but I mean the amount of people that I've spoke to that have seen them, and they're as genuine as you and me, and they'll have a serious conversation with me about it. And all the places that I will walk up in these forests where I'll mountain bike, and I've spent hours and hours, a lot of my life up here, and I've never seen anything remotely close to anything like that. But you can't discount these accounts from people that do. And a lot of them are from people that have lived up there all their life, and they might have just had 1 or 2 sightings, but they've known what they've seen, and it's as simple as that. It's that black and white.
Yeah, and they are, pardon the phrase, Chris, elusive. They're ultra elusive. They've got to be. And I'll just jump to Dane's Dyke, and we've got the vagrant who lived in Dyke for 13 years, and he said he'd seen them twice, or he'd seen one twice, whether it was the same one, in 13 years. And I think I said it a few weeks ago. So for the people watching this or listening and saying, load of rubbish, they're not here. If a guy who lives in a tent in the middle of a woodland has seen a black cat twice in 13 years, what chance have you got when you sat watching TV soaps after work? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
And the people you speak to, live in remote places, don't they? Usually on farms, little cottages in middle of forests and whatever.
Yeah, a lot of them will work the land, and I've spoken to ex-gamekeepers up there, that especially one gentleman, this was quite a few years ago, but he was very hesitant at first to talk about it. But obviously when I was talking to him, and he obviously knew then that I knew a fair amount of information about them, he did let on that he knew of at least 2 breeding pairs that were up in these forests here. And it was a case that he said, you know, those that know, and those that don't need to know. And he says they've probably done more good for the ecosystem up in these places having them than not having them. Yeah. And he says they'll take the straggling deer, they'll take dead birds after shoots, and they'll basically just clean up and there's enough up there for them to survive without bothering humans.
Yeah.
And yes, there'll maybe be the odd sheep and such like taken, but I think majority of the time it'll be ground birds, rabbits, but they're definitely there, and it's as simple as that, I think.
So what about your experience with Rev?
Yeah, so I had 2 sightings back in 2005 of a black cat when I was down at my brother's in North Wales, about a mile away from Aberdavan, so right out on the end of the Clym Peninsula. And I was walking down the road, and down there they dig the ditches out either side of the road, pile the earth back on, and then put hedges on it, so you can't really see where you're going. So as I'm walking down to this beach, I jump up on this banking to try and find out where I'm looking or where I'm going. As I jump up on this banking, I hear something rustle from underneath the hedge, and then this black cat shot out across the field. And what struck me about it was its tail. The way its tail hung down low, it kind of swooped down, and it was a bushy tail. And then maybe that evening or the evening after, we were having a barbecue, and this noise started coming from this gorse bush at the side of the garden, and there was like this constant purring growl. And so we're cooking away, and it's carrying on. So we got the torch out, shined the torch on the gorse bushes, and then these bright yellow eyes popped up, and it was sat watching what we were cooking. So that was my personal experiences of it. I do believe in 2019 that West Yorkshire Police had, I think it was over 23,000 black cat sightings.
Yeah, I remember.
So that's a hell of a lot of sightings being reported to the police for there to be nothing there. And I know when we've spoken before, you know, you've spoken to zoos and stuff to see if there's been anything escaped, and you've always got the answer about that. The pictures that you sent of the paw print, etc., they did put you off it, don't they? So it's just a big dog or whatever, try and put you away. And it's kind of like, I wonder if, obviously, stuff will escape. What sort of penalty do zoos have if they have an escaped black cat or a cougar or whatever, you know? So that it's in their interest to keep it quiet and hope it goes away.
I had an email a few years ago, and I'm not going to start a storm here. I've still got it, and I've exchanged quite a few with this person who worked at a big zoo in the UK. They lost a pack of wolves. They only got 2 back. And we're talking about eight or 9 wolves. They lost cats. People keeping the exotic insects. One person went home with one in his cap, a poisonous spider, and brought it back. Just off the top of my head, because I didn't think I'd be talking about zoos, and they told me all this, and the zoo and everything. Obviously, we're not going to say it on this channel, just we don't want some kind of libel labelled against us, but the person actually worked there and talked about a lot of exotic animals that escaped. And that's probably the reason, Rev, that you know, the actual penalty for losing such an animal and the operation of looking for it. Do you know, in East Yorkshire, when in 1994, when the lady at 𝗧𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵 and her husband and children saw a lioness in garden, they got instantly that day. There's 21 armed police officers, there's helicopters, everything's up looking for this, and they never found it. But I mean, it'd be a mammoth operation, wouldn't it?
It would. I wonder if the bill would be put back onto the zoo if it was proven to come from that particular zoo. You know what I mean?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've ever told you about the land that I co-own with my mother in Monmouth. I mentioned that to you, Paul? Or
no, I don't think you did.
You can Google it. If you Google something along the lines of the South Wales Argus, which is the name of a newspaper around here, the South Wales Argus and Catbrook, boy attacked by panther. The land that I own, on the edge of it, there's a playground, the back street onto it. Well, there's some children playing in there. For anybody who knows the area, this is Monmouth, and it's borders onto England, in South Wales. And there was a boy and some of his friends playing on this park, and he saw what he thought was a Labrador come in through the top end of this park. He's gone up to stroke it, and it's turned out to be a big panther, and it swiped him across the face, he alleged. And he had scratch marks like about 1.5 inches apart, went from ear to ear. Some people said that what he saw couldn't have been a panther, and their evidence was that if this panther swiped you across the face, it would take your face off, which, given, yeah, if anybody's seen a big cat's claws, I could understand that. But this young boy, why would he lie? And why would he make up something like that? Children make all sorts of fantastical things. But the whole point being is, this area, Monmouth, has had tons of big cat sightings. I can speak when I was on Gwent's arm response unit. I personally went to a couple of calls where big cats have been sighted.
Yeah.
And so going on to what you said, Revenant, every time we ended the job, this didn't happen. And you were told that this didn't happen. If you like the job, this did not happen.
Yeah.
But the calls would come out. I dealt with a few, and going on to what you said, Paul, nothing was ever found. As far as I'm aware, the records, they start keep records of it in the 80s, the police. And I think all they ever found was a footprint here and there. They called in a big cat specialist. I think he's the gentleman they called in, if I recall correctly. I think he's kind of the main go-to person now in UK for UK big cats. But yeah, that was very interesting. And another friend of mine, I won't say his name now, but I think he'd probably be happy to talk about it if needed to. He lives in 𝗣𝗂𝘂𝘁, which isn't very far from Monmouth. This is all, it's all got Hereford and then Monmouth, and these are all places in between, and at the foot of the Brecon Beacons. And 𝗣𝗂𝘂𝘁, he was coming down through some country lanes, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. And there was some men doing roadworks in the road that he wanted to go to. So we had to turn around. Well, there was a driveway going into a field, and the field had a big, the big wooden gates they have on fields. And the other side, it put mesh onto this gate so nothing could get through it. He said that as he went nose into it, a big black cat comes straight out of the bushes right in front of it. And it was panicked by the headlights, and it turned to go through the gate itself and bumped into the mesh, and apparently turned around and hissed at him. These workmen saw it as well. And this happened to come out. I just told him one night, he's not interested in anything paranormal. He's got no interest. He's very much into nuclear physics, that sort of stuff. A very smart person. Yeah, just some stories I thought I'd put out there that yourselves are on the other side of the UK to me, essentially, for all intents and purposes. And yet we have sightings down here as well. I can recall over here in a program some years back, and they said on there that if I believe it's right, the general consensus now is that the cats that are in the UK highly likely are not a completely new breed of cat, but are a new strain of the species that initially got out, because they've said all these cats that came out in the 80s or 70s, they got released, they'll probably all be dead by now. So if we're still getting these cat sightings, this is their young that have been born and have now acclimatized the UK. So it's something for me. I think that's quite an interesting thing to think about. You know, what is out there now and how have they changed? I've got no doubts at all that they're out there. No doubts at all. You know,
what's your views on it, Chris? Thanks, Dean.
That's okay.
Which Chris?
Chris, yeah, good point.
It's a given.
I think Chris is switched off. Daydreaming.
You what, Chris?
No, you're right. It's a given. I think anybody into this subject is pretty much it's accepted now. Here where I am in the northwest, just outside Manchester, Bolton, my wife's seen one. She was on a hack riding with a friend, and one just walked out in front of her. I think the guys, Lee Roscoe's probably in the chat. The animal deaths sorry guys, just finding the right word there. That they were investigating a couple of years ago. The sheep up at Winter Hill. I think Mick McLaren had sent some photographs off to a specialist in America, and that guy came back and said, you know, at least some of these photographs are most likely the work of a cat, a big cat. So yeah, I mean, and as everybody knows, there's so much food out there for them. The likelihood of them attacking anybody is very, very slim. So, well, you know, I think they've just got to acknowledge it soon. I think
it's a given, yeah.
Can I come in with a kind of a pretty obvious question here? Is that you talked? I think the Reverend talked about all these reports in was it the northeast? The thousands of cat reports. Why haven't we actually snared one, captured one? Why has nobody ever got one?
Well, there has been plenty shot by keepers, but it's not spoken about. There's lots caught on game cams all the time. So there's physical evidence. I believe there was some DNA taken not so long ago that's proven to have been a large cat. So there's physical evidence now, but it's the same again, and if they don't want you to know about it, you ain't going to find out until they drip feed you. So it's but there has been.
Does anybody think that there's a paranormal element to them, or are we just dealing with something that's escaped and it's ultra elusive?
I think there's two. I think both. I think there's definitely the physical large cats in the UK. But like I've said before to you, the sightings of large cats before Bigfoot and Dogman sightings in America is uncanny. You know, it's like one after the other. So I think there's both aspects at the moment.
Yeah. So
one thing, Paul, I was going to say, one thing which I think needs to be taken into account is a lot of people don't realise how little of the UK is inhabited. We live in towns and we think, well, hang on, my God, everybody's so built up. Why haven't we seen one? A lot of the UK isn't inhabited. I think it's something like 3% of Wales is inhabited. You know, the mid part of Wales, there's virtually no one living there. So it's, well, you know, I think that goes a long way to why we possibly haven't caught one. It's because, they got free reign, and bear in mind that cats have got exceptional senses. You try and put any bait out them, they're not going to go for that. They're extra cautious animals by nature. Quickly on the subject of attacking a human, I personally feel like a cat is too smart, so they'll look at it, they'll go, that could hurt me. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth attacking it because it could hurt me. Because I think anybody watched a cat mentioned in the lions and everything in Africa, it's been said they know that they won't go after anything that can hurt them. They'll weigh it up because, you know, it only takes one little nick off something and they get an infection, it can kill it. So, I think they're definitely out there. Sorry, I don't mind me out of that bit.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, we kind of jump a little bit to the cryptid type phenomenon. I want to just ask Chris, you know, when you got involved and started helping us with Wolflands, what have your views changed on what these things are, or the potential that, after listening to Revenant, after listening to lads in Rotherham, I know this is real now, even though I've not seen it, you know, with my own eyes. What are your views now? Have they changed from day one to 3?
Mine have definitely changed. I think even as a kid growing up, and you see the film Legend of Boggy Creek and similar films, you think, we're dealing with a real flesh and blood creature. But now, educating yourself and speaking to the people, and obviously you like we all do, will watch videos on YouTube and all the rest of this stuff from around the world. I really think there's something else to this, and I don't think it's a flesh and blood 24/7 living creature. That's just my view. I think we're dealing with something, whether it's dimensional, you know, we talk about portals and things like this, and it sounds crazy, but the amount of people that have seen these creatures just disappear in front of their eyes, there's, as far as we can see, there's living proof that we're dealing with something that's not of the norm.
Yeah.
And that's where my views have changed. You know, I thought it was flesh and blood, some, you know, Bigfoot creature running around the wilds of the northwest of America, but no, this phenomena is worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chris, I mean, you've been involved in this for a long time, and what about you? What did you think we were dealing with when you first got involved in Elusive?
Initially, I would have said before I knew about the European element of this stuff, it was all, as Chris said, it was all America and Canada, wasn't it? So I just, because of the land masses over there, I just presumed that there was enough land and enough remote forest and mountains and all the rest of it for them to exist purely as a flesh and blood entity. But now you realise that these things are literally appearing in small towns and cities, in the side of motorway embankments, and well, anywhere for that matter. I agree. I think there is. I actually think, and it's funny because Paul and I discussed this, I think on Tuesday night, we were chatting about the supernatural. We're chatting about dogmen in particular, and we would. Once upon a time, I think a pair of us would have said that the transformational element of this, whatever these things are, in regards to the werewolf, dogman, I wouldn't have thought that possible at all. And it's only in the last year or so when you bring in ritualistic magic and shamanism into this equation that I've started to have another look at this and rethink the possibilities around. I think it's certainly more than one. There's a flesh and blood element to this. There's a ritualistic magic element to this, and there's most likely a supernatural dimensional element to this. Because talking about the projection element of this, you know, the mask element of this, and that these entities can project as various beings. I actually think that these cryptids are probably one of those projections among many. So yeah. I think there's 3, if not more, possibilities out there regarding the cryptids. And just to jump back quickly to the big cats, if the authorities are willing to brush this under the carpet and say, we don't talk about this, can you imagine what they're saying about the rest of this stuff?
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Well, you know, there's so many elements that take it away from the true physical, and yet I think we know from the amount of people we've spoken to that there's a physical to it, and hopefully we might touch on it with Dean's. It actually rocked his car or moved his car, but I'll get to that, Dean, in a minute. But and then we've got Revenant's sighting, and it didn't walk, it floated. And then there's some mountain bikers up at Howard said it looked like it were on a sliding track. Yeah, all the time that these things look solid and look powerful, and that with the Rotherham lads they could hear it breathing. So there's a physicality to it if you've got lung power enough to from 30 foot away for them to be able to hear it breathing. It's a strange magic. It probably would be perceived as magic to us. It's a strange science that allows these creatures to do the things that they can do. The self-illuminating eyes. I mean, that's an absolutely incredible one as well. But I mean, I don't know if Revenant wants to describe its movement of what you saw.
Yeah, so its movement was very smooth. It just came in very smooth. If you imagine in front of the farmhouse, it was full of rough grass, so it was all overgrown. So you couldn't walk through there without stepping over stuff. And there was no movement at all. It was just like there was nothing. I mean, I didn't see anything sort of its legs anyway, but it was so smooth, faultless. It was like watching a track. So if you have let's take a racetrack with dogs chasing air. It was like that, but slower. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just smooth.
It just arrived, didn't it?
It just arrived, yeah.
Well, you gave that analogy, just like a torch beam going down wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it was, unlike any movement that I've seen from human, animal, you know, everything makes mistakes. Everything has twitches. Everything has to step over stuff that's in the way. This didn't seem to. It just seemed to arrive just floating, very smooth, very unnatural.
Yeah, well, you know, the lads, we call them the Rotherham lads, don't we? But Steve, he emphasises how this thing stood up, and he goes, there were no movement, there were none of that. It just rose. It were like two ping pong balls in tubes of water when he saw them illuminating eyes just rising, and it's incredible. I mean, honestly, you can see it just baffles me and blows me away every time I hear these accounts. But
I mean, my initial thought on what I'd seen was it was an unknown creature, but there was no tracks, there was no flattening grass, there was nothing to say that anything could walk past that way. So the way that I looked at stuff initially is unknown creature. So you hear lots of people talking about the UK as it being small, but like Dean says, it's very small. The population's dense, so it's in 5% of the overall of the UK's populated. So there's lots of room to support an animal of that size unknown. So from a professional point of view, yeah, there could be a creature that we don't know about that's physical, that lives off the land like a deer, like a fox, and we just don't see it. But everything connecting with what I experienced when I was up there and before and after is there's definitely more power, more going on than just physical stuff. I think the fact that nobody seems to be, they hear breaking, they hear noises, they hear lots of stuff to put you on edge, but they never find it. They never see the trees snap. They never, nobody gets touched. Nobody seems to, apart from the guy down in Sheffield, wasn't it, where he got lifted up by his calf. That was a bit different, that one. But the majority of the cases, there doesn't seem to be any harm. It seems to be that impression of fear onto people to try and get them to react for whatever reason.
But you make a good point, and
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
the guy.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, I think you're going to say what I was going to say.
Well, I am. I touched on it other week, Chris. I thought, what about researchers, experiencers like Revenant and people who've been in forest and experienced these things? But we'll use lad at Warncliffe Woods as an example. He said after it had picked his friend up with calf all night until daylight, every 20 minutes or so, he said you'd hear a sound like an explosion, like a gunshot or a tree being split in half. It's almost like it's some kind of projection. These things are mimics, I think, because he said, and then it started and the forest just got ripped up around us, breaking trees, all sorts of carnage. But he spoke of no carnage when they went out, when they left. And look at all these other researchers in America when they say it's smashing trees to bits. And like Rev's just touched upon then, bona fide researchers with cameras. I think they've probably missed a trick, and we're picking up on it. Why aren't you showing us evidence of these smashed up trees, the ground that it's smashed to bits? Because they said it sound like a bulldozer going through forest. Well, we'd see evidence of it. It doesn't mean that these guys are lying, but what it probably does mean is that these things can produce all sorts of sounds, I think.
Yeah.
So go on, Chris, what were you going to say? That?
No, I was going to say exactly that, mate.
Yeah, sorry.
Exactly that. Because they are mimics in many ways. They are mimics in many ways, both visually and they can project that audio, can't they? And like the bluff charges, for example. And as you say, it seems to be about projecting fear as well as it's also to induce fear, or at least that's the way it seems. I don't know whether there's a... Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether there's a give and take with that. Did they get anything out of that, or is it literally to? Because there are some researchers. I think Steve Merrer's mentioned to me that in some cases he believes that whatever these entities are, that they do that to get people out of certain areas. They just don't want people in this certain area for whatever reason. So yeah, definitely, I agree with you perfectly.
Yeah, and you know,
can I just sorry to cut across you guys. Yeah, can I just come in before I forget? It's quite important. Lee Roscoe's in the chat tonight, so welcome to the show, Lee. And we've got a donation from Lee, so that's very welcome. A donation on the super chat. He also says, "What have you all learned from start to finish of the making of Wolflands?" And hello to you all, and that sleepy Chris Turner, he says. So, what have you learned, Paul, from starting?
To have more,
Wolflands,
I've probably learned to have more patience, because I think I've been saying, and people know that, oh, we'll have it finished in next 12 months, and it's just gone on and on and on. But you know, I wouldn't have done it any other way now, and yeah, I've learned a lot, and I'll tell you what I have learned. That there's some great people out there. I've met some good friends whilst making this documentary, and and same people are going to carry us through and help us into the next one, which is absolutely brilliant. I know that don't answer anything in detail, but over to anybody else.
Yeah, I think my view, I think really it's just absolute excitement and fascination being involved with this. Just hearing these different accounts from people that have no knowledge of this subject, and they're just giving us these fascinating, in-depth details of these creatures, and it's mind-blowing to try and put the picture in your own head what they've actually seen, and be in these places where they've seen it, and it really excites me, not in a weird way, but it's brilliant,
Right, I've just got a message from Dean. Have you turned Dean's camera off, Les?
Let's get him back on again.
Yeah. There we go.
Sorry about that, Dean. Welcome back.
I just
saw your battery die.
No, I just nipped by there. That's all.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So where were we then? Well, what we were touching on is the physicality of these strange creature sightings, the creatures themselves, and obviously just as much or as little detail as you want to tell us. If you want to just mention what it did to the car, what you experienced, Dean.
I'm happy to run through it all, Paul. I'll keep it brief because of the time constraints. I don't know if anybody's heard it, because I haven't really told many people. I've spoken to one or two people maximum about it. I was parked up in a car park at a place not too far from here called 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝘁𝗵. One thing which I didn't think was relevant, but might be relevant, was a fog appeared. Not like a horror film, so woo, scary. Just I noticed a mist, like you get low lying in the evenings, fairly quickly. And a short time after, something bumped my car, and it's gone round beside the car. I'm sorry if this is brief, but I've got a lot more detail. I'm just trying to keep it to the bare bones. And I've looked in my wing mirror, and by looking over my shoulder, I've seen something that the old clothing described it to is what looked like a Irish wolfhound, but much, much bigger. Lots of things that were different to a wolfhound, but that in the sense of the athleticism, and it had very long arms and legs. Some people suggest to me it was a dog man, but there's lots of aspects of it that don't fit in with that. And it could have been, I don't know. Who am I? I'm no expert. I know nothing about them, and I've got no evidence other than what I've seen. But it bumped into the car, and the car I hit I had a Volkswagen Beetle, an old one, but the gentleman I bought it off used to use it for track racing, and he'd basically taken out the road necessary gear to keep it lightweight, and had put my understanding, not a Porsche 911, another type Porsche, the suspension into it. So you can imagine, if this is a track prepped car, the suspension, you can move it. It might as well had concrete blocks as suspension. You could not move. You could sit under the car, wouldn't move. And whatever this was, it bumped into my car, and it bumped it hard enough to rock the car. There was no dent there. There's nothing, no sign of it having been there whatsoever. And I watched this thing turn back on itself, which again is peculiar. It didn't sort of go wide, and there was a vast open space out to the right where it could have turned out towards. Yet for some reason, it turned in towards my door. And the only way I can describe it is like a cat will turn. When cats are trying to get your attention, they go round your legs and they turn tight round on themselves. it did that, but right tight round on itself, almost in a U shape, and then run off away from the car, watch it run away, and along a road, and then head off out towards these fields. And there's an old church out there, and towards a forest called Wentwood Forest. That's it. Brief, Paul. But I'm happy to discuss any details.
No. I noticed you said arms.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. They described them having arms and legs, and they're muscular, and that sort of thing. Mine didn't. It wasn't like that. It's. I say arms because it didn't have paws. It's had what looked like if you got a dog's paws and stretched them out, like sort of pull them with pads still on it, and it didn't have claws, because descriptions I've always heard are razor sharp claws. Again, it had nails like a dog's nails, but that were just stretched out further. That makes sense. It was like someone. The only way, I suppose, if you've got a Photoshop of a dog's paw and in lengthened it, that is, you would have what I saw.
And obviously an Irish Wolfhound's a huge dog, probably the tallest dog in the world. I don't know, might be heaviest, but I
think only the Great Dane's bigger. My understanding is, I could be wrong, but they're huge. This thing was crouched tight to my car. First of all, it looked like it was crouched down tight, almost like he was trying to avoid something and not be seen. That's the impression that I get when I reflect back on it. But it was enough that I could see just the top of it, a bit of light coming in from the street lights above it. So it was almost the same height, crouched up as a Volkswagen Beetle, an old style Volkswagen Beetle. Yeah. It was huge.
That is terrifying. Think of same height as a Volkswagen Beetle crouched up. That is a frightening prospect. Yeah, terrifying. And did the mist go after you'd seen it, or do you not recall?
I can't recall, Paul. I can't remember. No. As soon as it turned and went, I went. Very sharpish. Yeah. I think my other half at the time lived a street and a half away, and I couldn't even face go into where she lived. She had to come up to my house, and I lived 23, 24 miles away from her, and I couldn't face going down there, Paul. I could not handle it. Terrified me. Absolutely terrified. I've faced all sorts of things in my life, scary things. I've had guns pointed at me. I've been stabbed. You've probably seen me with a stab mark there in the back of my hand. I've had all sorts of things done to me, Paul. None of it was even close to the fear that I felt with this. It was, I can understand when people say you feel your blood run cold, because the back of my neck, I remember the back of my neck going freezing cold, terrifying cold.
Pouring water down back of your neck.
Yeah, and my mind was addled, absolutely addled by it.
Anybody got any views? Well, on Dean's account. If not, I just want to move to these self-illuminating eyes and people's views on them. But
I'll jump into the start like the way Paul.
Hold on, 1 sec, Dean. I think Rev wanted to ask you something. Did you?
Sorry, Rev.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about its appearance. Was the fur longer than on an Irish Wolfhound, or was it roughly the same in proportion?
About the same length. Same length. But I remember the friend of it down here was, when you see Scotty dogs, those sort of small white dogs, and their fur gets all sort of brown and dyed with time. It was like that all down the front of here, sort of down here and down the front. It looked to me like it was yellowish brown. I say looked because I can't say for sure, because it was in street lights. I mean, it was going off the street lights. But yeah, it looked like it was brownish and dirty down the front of it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Can I just come in here, Paul?
Yeah.
With a couple of chat things. Mark at McClinchy is asking, when's this film out, Paul? When is this film out?
Well, it's finished. The music's finished. So we've got that marathon over, and we're just trying to place it, Mark. We've tried a few places already. We're waiting for, I wouldn't say a yes or a no, because obviously if somebody wants it, it don't mean that we're going to just say, oh, this is wonderful. We aren't going into detail. I mean, Chris enlightened us to some other day, and we don't have to go into any detail. So we're not forced to just jump because a TV company want it. We might end up streaming it ourselves yet through some other means and having DVDs done. But it won't be long, I wouldn't think, Mark, because all Paul's talk about, we're nearly there. It is finished. It's absolutely complete.
I'll just get this one from Janet Wildman.
Janet.
to Jeff, the Revenant. Could the lady on the post be a spirit?
Yeah, I think when I had a look back into the history of the house, I spoke to some of the farmers up there. So there's still living relatives of the family that lived there in the 1840s, which is, I think, the earliest I could go back on the records. The family at the time, I think there was, did I say 17 people that lived at that farm? So it must have been quite crowded. So I'm assuming that the lady, we'll have to try and find the picture, Paul, because I haven't got it anymore, but I know I sent you it.
Yeah, I shall have a look. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah, I'm assuming that she's probably one of the former occupants of the house. Yeah.
Just before we move away, because Janet's just asked a question. Janet came, well, good enough to come onto Cliff Tops with me and Chris the other night, and Andy, and I won't go into massive detail, but Janet, when we talk about things of an unusual nature happening, she went onto the Cliff Tops, me, Andy, herself, and her son, who was in his 30s, and Andy and Janet both witnessed a solid bar of light open up in one of the old RAF buildings. The open doorway of the building. I mean, it don't detract from what we're going to do with the documentary, so I don't think Chris does it. You know, it's just an incredible account of something strange happening. What did you think when you heard that, Chris?
Yeah, what, the light, you mean?
Yeah, Janet. Well, you'd never heard Janet's account. What? Any views when you were listening to it?
It's fascinating, really, isn't it? Because that. Just the base, because of the base reputation, really, and obviously 2 people seeing it, which is another thing, because you saw it with Andy. And obviously, after, it's not just that, is it? It's something else happened that evening as well.
That's right.
We'll not go into that, but something else happened, which makes it even more profound, really. Whatever that was, something quite major going on there. This wasn't just some free. It certainly wasn't someone messing around with a light inside an old abandoned base. Absolutely not.
There's no lighting in anything up there. The only thing that goes in them places now are cattle. There's nothing up there. The door. There's no doors on. It's an opening. It's a big double door opening. And I was just talking to Janet's son when Janet and Andy became really animated and shouting because they're saying what they'd seen, this big bar of light just open up in the doorway. And we won't go into detail, but like you said, something else happened. And I'm wondering if it was some kind of distraction myself, but there you go. And it sounds a bit too cryptic, so I'll leave it at that. But yeah, thank you, Janet. Have we got questions, Les? Because we've not done any questions.
Can for the benefit of the people who don't know the area you're talking about or the base that you're talking about, can you give us a little potted history of whereabouts it is and what it did in the past, Paul? Base?
So what we're talking about, and we weren't on the base for anybody that thinks we were on the Cliff Tops, but there's a former RAF base on edge of East Yorkshire coast at Bempton, RAF Bempton. It came in 1940, and it came to Flamborough first. And during that same year, they found that the elevation of 130 feet weren't enough. So they moved to Bempton. And it was there from 1940 to 1968. After it closed, and I've got documented evidence of UFO reports from Bempton, official from MOD, from old documents. They've not made them for Paul. They're just there. And Philip Mantle were kind enough to share them with me. And when it closed, intermittently, it was allegedly used by a satanic cult. And it's got a strange history, to say the least.
Yeah, and really, this is the focal point of the area that a lot of your research stems from, isn't it, Paul? It is. There, yeah.
And I'm always keen to say that the base is completely out of bounds. It's privately owned, and nobody should be going on it. That's not stopped people in past. Urban explorers and people, who've been on and used it. And I know below the surface, it's kind of festooned with satanic art. which has not been done by children. It's quite good, and it's erotic in certain places. But it's good artwork. Let's put it that way. Even though its content imperfect, it's good artwork. What were you going to say, Dean?
I was just going to ask Paul. Sorry, because I'm not familiar with this RAF basis location. Is this, and people, I apologise now if I'm completely off the mark. I'm not good with Northern England, where place is located. Where is this in relation to, is it RF Bentwaters? Is that, we are the Rendlesham?
Yeah, it's a long way. Chris might know how many miles away, or somebody else. Okay. I don't. It's a long way. Looking at 4 or 5 hours drive, aren't you?
Right. Okay. That's. I was wondering if they were within close proximity to each other.
You make an interesting observation though, because strange activity around military bases. You know, Bentwaters, Benton, lots of other places, you know, around UK seem to. I don't know whether it's I don't know why the phenomena is attracted to these places. I don't know. But Staxton Wold, loads of UFO reports around RAF Staxton Wold, you know, and that's 11 miles from the former RAF Benton.
Can I get another question in, Paul?
Sorry? Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Alex Thompson is asking a question for all you gents. Any reports of spectral big black dogs?
Well, like black shark, that sort of thing.
Anybody want to run with that one? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about run with it, but those kind of reports seem to echo back in folklore, don't they? In annals of time, and they talk about the dogs with glowing eyes. I'm wondering if those reports, in many ways, are what people are reporting today. Do you know what I think we're dealing with the same thing. I mean, in East Ayton, which is how far from Broxer and Harwood, was it 2 or 3 miles?
2 miles, yeah.
2 miles. So in a lot of these places, what we've covered in Wolflands, you've got a guy 120 years ago called Howard Brealey writing about the Barguest of East Ayton and talking about a huge spectral hound with self-illuminate. Well, he said it had got glowing red eyes. He wouldn't have said bioluminescence back in the day, would he? Well, that's essentially what it sounds like. But he's talking about it 2 miles from where we're covering stories in Wolflands. And that's 120 years ago. So I know I've probably not answered your question fully there, Alex, but I think we're probably dealing with the same things that people talked about hundreds of years ago. We're just dressing it up with different words.
It's the demonic alien thing again, isn't it? It's the same thing, just in a different format now. So
you're spot on. Yeah.
You don't hear of the black dog, so to speak, anymore. That seems to have died out, probably Edwardian 1910. Certainly after the Second World War, there doesn't seem to be much. It's more UFO sightings seem to be more prolific after then, don't they? So yeah.
All good. More questions, Les?
Yeah, I've got a question it's for the Revenants, and Spooky is asking, did this creature, did it stay the same size during your encounter, or did it change shape or size? Did you see anything you could describe as eyes?
I didn't see. I mean, it stayed the same size, which was fuck off big. I didn't see any eyes. Didn't see any, the sort of mouth or muzzle or teeth. Nothing like that. Just this big head, big shoulders, and it appeared to be kind of stooping down to sort of look onto the window. So, yeah.
And just before he leaves that one, Les, we measured up where window lintel was, and it was up to 7 foot. You know, and if it's stooping down, and that had 20 years of tiles and rubble below it, because there were no tiles on roof when we looked at it.
No, and it took up 3/4 of the window. It was just a big thing that was there, but no definition of anything, unfortunately.
Les wants to ask another question. Sorry, Les, I'll stop in a moment, but I do want to jump back to Rev whispering and stuff in a bit. But go on, Les. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, Baby with a Laser is asking, do the gang think the phenomenon is increasing, or do they think CERN may be playing a part?
Yeah, I mean, if you, like we were you were just saying about the military bases that seem to be prominent in the high frequency area or the high areas of sightings. They're operating with different frequencies. It's got to affect something that, like I've said before, we're missing 95% of what we see. So it's got to affect something, I would think. Yeah.
Anybody? Any views on that?
With any views on that?
I think I don't know if possibly it's happening more. I think a lot of why we're getting reports in general is because the world's becoming a small place because of technology, and now it's becoming more acceptable. 30 years ago, you'd never go up to a person you don't know and say, "I saw a werewolf." You'd be locked up. You'd lose your job. You'd be the town idiot. But it's now people are more open-minded, I think. Again, I don't think that sort of answers it, but I think that's part of it, is that due to technology, people there's a bit of anonymity about it, so they can report stuff now, and it doesn't have to be said in the town hall in front of everyone. You can go to people who have the same interests of you and are going to take yourself seriously and will be a sympathetic ear. That's sort of my take on why we're getting more reports. It's because it's becoming more acceptable, and people are realizing that the people who've been going about UFOs weren't wearing tinfoil hats. They were just ahead of the curve. And yesterday's magic is now today's science.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Well, you've got a phone now, haven't you? So you've got instant access to a camera if you do see anything, most people. So a lot more stuff's getting videoed and put up so people feel like they can come forward. Yeah, you're right there, Dean.
Yeah.
Any views on that, Chris?
One of the things I would add there is it seems to me like the phenomenon has always been here before. We've said before, haven't we? Before, well, forever, really. Forever in one form or another. But one of the things they talk about in ufology in particular is when they started messing with nuclear. So when, like, if the experiments at Trinity, for example, they say that some of the whistleblowers say that when that event happened, that explosion displaced things in other dimensions, allegedly, and caused even more of phenomena, if you like, other phenomena to start paying closer attention to what we were doing, or in mankind's case, what we were destroying, usually.
Dark Angel says that, I've just looked, he's not posed a question because it's not in caps, but he said, we're seeing it more or experiencing it more because it's heading towards something big. Does anybody think that?
I think it depends if you got a biblical view or not, possibly. I think that could possibly be to do with external factors, how you're raised, what your world beliefs are. On the flip side, I think many could argue that just common sense dictates it's going some way. Because come back to our earlier conversations, governments aren't going to let stuff out unless they want to. So why are they doing that? It's heading some way. But I think a lot of it could do with, I'm not sure if that's what, is it 𝗧𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵, sorry, was referring
Dark Angel.
Dark Angel. Sorry, Dark Angel, I do apologise. If it's something biblical, because I know there's quite a lot of, I'm not sure, is it Christianity that talks about the end of times and, I can't remember what it was, sorry, beasts being amongst men and beasts laying with women, that sort of thing, the end of times. I don't know. It's a hard one to answer, really, isn't it?
Well, before we close it, have you any views on this, Chris? Chris, right.
Yeah, I mean, I just think people are maybe a little bit more open-minded these days and interested in this kind of subject. I mean, I would talk to some of my friends years ago and mention things like this, and it would just be a passing comment and no more. But now they know I'm interested in this, although I still get ribbed about it. They are interested and they do ask what's been going on, so people are more open now and they don't feel embarrassed to talk about this kind of subject than they maybe would have done 10, 20, 30 years ago. So I think it's just become a lot easier for people to ask about this phenomena and openly talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll go back to the question that was asked before about what you'd gain from the film. And for me, from my experience, being able to talk about that and to go back, go through it step by step has helped me a lot, because it's something I never really spoke about, never really tried to shut it away, and just didn't really think about it much. So it's kind of that, innit? You know, it's helping. It's almost like therapy, isn't it? You know what I mean? Being able to,
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
speak like that and bring it out. Yeah.
Something you've been carrying around, you can offload it.
Yeah. So it's good like that, you know. So it's and
was you fearful of going back to kind of ground zero and retelling the story though?
Yeah, because it not yeah. I suppose I was a bit fearful, apprehensive, because it's been a long time since I've been back there. And reliving it, where you can smell the trees, you can feel the wind, the grass, everything plays on your senses at the time that you forget about, but it's there, isn't it? You know what I mean? So when you think back, that's what causes like the post-traumatic stress. It's everything that you know that you're sensing at that time. So it's kind of like that, I guess, in a way, but on a smaller scale, if you know what I mean. It's not as it doesn't take over your life in that way, you know what I mean? I didn't, for me anyway. So
no.
And, Dean, it'll be something similar for you, won't it? It's a kind of therapeutic, would it be? I know you've told the story before on radio shows, Dean.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I genuinely thought there's been a lot of times until I talked about where I thought I was losing my marbles, and I couldn't discuss it I certainly couldn't discuss it with my family members. My dad's side of the family are all military, very people that don't believe in anything like this. So there's no way I could talk about it to anyone. It was peculiar, and even now, I still now will occasionally question myself. Was it really that? And I don't know if that's because my memory of it isn't very good, or am I letting in the concern of what others will think? If that makes sense? You know, I question myself over it, where ultimately I know exactly what happened. I can remember exactly what happened. It bothered the hell out of me. It scared the life out of me. I bothered's the wrong word. It terrified me. Absolutely terrified me. But it was, I found it very uncomfortable. I still get quite, I think, Paul, you see me like it, I can get quite, sort of my chest gets tight, and I get quite uptight talking about it even now. And it's 20 odd years ago. Yeah. So it definitely helps talking about it. Definitely. Yeah. I'm just glad that I've met like-minded people and met yourselves.
Yeah. Do you know, Dean, and that could be, I don't mean that is the reason, but it could be part of the reason that people are talking more, simply because of channels like this, like Chris's channel, where like-minded individuals can actually offload what they're talking about, and it's sensible talk regardless of the subject matter, because we're not, I've seen other channels where it's just they're away with fairies, and this is regardless of subject matter that we're talking about, which is highly controversial. Really, it's trying to get your head around what you've seen, but you're with like-minded people, and people who realise that there's some sincerity to what we're being told, and there's sympathetic ears listening. And jumping from the cryptid to my own experiences, I wrote Night People, and I told with idea back and forward with Don, who edited the book, whether I should put one particular part of it in. And I still struggle to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I've written about it. I'm talking at the awakening, and I'm not talking about the Night People, as I've called them. And I'm not talking about that part of it. And I'm dreading people asking me, because it's frightening. It's absolutely terrifying. And there's no other word for it. I suppose it is some kind. It's a stress that wells up inside you. It's horrible. But anyway, sorry, Les, go on.
Yeah, I've just got a question from Dark Angel. It's for you, Revenant. I noticed you have tattoos of the Coronas. Have I pronounced that correct?
Cernunnos.
I knew I'd get that wrong. Yeah. Did you get them before or after your encounter that you had?
Yeah, I got these after the encounter that I had at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got Cernunnos.
Cernunnos, yeah.
On one side, and then there's the 𝗧𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵, which is a ancient cup and ring mark stone on Ilkley Moor. And it actually, well, my belief of what it represents is the Milky Way. It's the spiral that the Milky Way takes with the dead galaxy following it. So, you know, there's lots of theories as to what they are, but that's what I believe it is. So, yes, I got them after.
There's a full live stream there on your body art there. I think Reverend, we'll have to do that one day, Paul. Yeah, I don't know if you want to run with anything, Paul.
No, have we done with questions?
Well, I've got another one. It's quite a good one actually, but I can leave it if you like.
Okay, then I just want to know. I don't think anybody here experienced the self-illuminating eyes. I mean, Chris have touched on them with some people he spoke to. Dean, go on.
Paul, I hope you don't mind me. I was going to talk about this briefly, but if we're going to head on to that, I don't know if anybody's seen it. I grabbed a quick picture of it so I could show you it. But this is something that has been found out recently in Australia. Tasmanian devils have been filmed with self-illuminating eyes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
First time ever it's been captured on film. Apparently there's been reports of it for however long back reports go. And it was always laughed at, scoffed at, and now it's been caught on camera. Tasmanian devils have self-illuminating eyes. Well, for me, that now automatically ticks all the other boxes and reports of self-illuminating eyes. It's not ridiculous anymore because it's recorded on an animal that we know exists, the Tasmanian devil. So why not other things?
Good point.
I don't know if you can pop us a link, Dean, to that in the private chat.
To be honest with you, Les, I quickly went online. I put in Google, and it was off the Daily Mail, the first one that came.
All right,
the Mail, the report on it there. Sorry, and I wouldn't know how to do that anyway. If I'm honest with you, I'm not good with computers.
No worries. No, I know we've all we've done in Wolflands is cover the Rotherham lad's story of the self-illuminating eyes. I don't think we've got any more, but nevertheless, I find it fascinating, and. I just don't know. I don't. What? Anybody else got any views on that, Chris? Right.
It's just another part of of the mix of the phenomena, isn't it? It's, you know, up until what Dean's just said, I wasn't aware of any creatures that we knew that had the self-illuminating eyes, but it does seem to be a running thread through a lot of the cryptid sightings, whether it be Bigfoot, dogmen, or whatever. There does seem to be the glowing eye side of things, which is odd in itself, really. I know the guys, Steve and Jimmy, said that it wasn't overly bright, but it was bright enough to see them without shining a torch, just to see them through the darkness, and that's weird within itself, really, when you come across something like that. I would imagine.
Well, I took a surveyor's tape in, and we knew where they were, and we knew where they'd seen it. There were two trees that kind of acted as markers, Chris, and they were 42 foot away. And they said these eyes lit up in darkness. Like you said, they're not casting a beam or anything, but they lit up in the darkness. And I mean, and interestingly, he said he uses the analogy in Wolflands as like his fists. He says, and the size of the head, that's when I'm describing it. He says it's just huge. So, I mean, I don't know. What's the purpose of it? Is it to see in the dark? Is it to cause intimidation? I don't know.
Is it the retina? Is it the retina collects so they can see in the dark? It collects a lot of light.
Of light, yeah.
You know, it's hard to answer.
Yeah, but we look at an owl's eyes; they don't illuminate, do they? You know, and they probably can see as well as anything in the darkness. So, is there another purpose for these things, or is it the fact that they come from somewhere where everything has self-illuminating eyes?
Well, I've heard reports, Paul, or heard accounts of Sasquatch being seen, and they've been reported, or people observed them, their eye colour changing. I've heard of reports of blue eyes, green eyes, and red eyes, and apparently, allegedly, males have red eyes more than the females.
All right, I don't know.
I can't say for sure. I don't know. It's just what I've heard.
Well, Chris, you've done more work with documentary Elusive and the Cryptid. What's your views on this?
Well, I think until Dean went and bloody spoiled it, this were all associated with supernatural creatures, wasn't it? Of illuminating eyes, but Dean's found some really interesting information there. So yeah, I mean, traditionally, the supernatural element of this is the self-glowing eyes. More often than not, people talk about the red eyes, don't they? And sometimes, I mean, I don't know whether that's a traditional thing with them being red and the negative fear, evil element of that sort of thing, in pop culture. But of course, with the Dogman, a lot of it's amber glowing eyes, isn't it? So yeah, that's traditionally that's what's been reported. But as Dean's found there, they've opened up a real can of worms now.
Well, it has, but isn't that good? In a way, regardless of whether it's supernatural or flesh and blood, I'm really, me personally, I'm not bothered. I want to kind of establish the existence for the people who claim to have seen them. That's where I'm at. And what Dean's just come out with there, if that's correct, and I mean, we can only go on what that paper says. They're not always accurate, are they? But you know what I mean? But if that's correct, Dean, do you know what I mean? If that is correct, then like Chris has just said, once again, it's a science that we haven't quite caught up with yet, that we don't understand, and the actual ability for these things, we might find they've got some kind of cloaking mechanism that can be almost like an octopus or a chameleon-like that they can do. I don't know. I don't know how they'd achieve it, but nevertheless, and if it turned out to be a flesh and blood bona fide creature that we just never detected because science hasn't got the means to detect it or people, then that's all well and good. And that could be first step, Dean, the proof that the Tasmanian devil has self-illuminating eyes. But for me, it doesn't detract from the fact that these things they're incredible by whatever standards or by whatever terms we want to use on them, supernatural or flesh and blood, they're incredible.
Just to throw a spanner in the works quickly.
Oh, another one.
Don't mind me doing this.
You'll just spoil it, Dean. Go on.
Going on the subject of cloaking and disappearing, it's far-fetched at the moment, but the glowing eyes was far-fetched, and it hammers home what I said earlier, that yesterday's magic is today's science. That if I said to you, I can show you an animal that can look like an object, can look like a stone, can look like a fish, can change its color, has 3 hearts, has DNA that doesn't connect itself to any other animal on the planet, you laugh at me, but that's an octopus. Squid, they can change the texture of the skin, the shape of the skin, they can grow horns, they can do flashes, they got chromatophores on their bodies, they can flash those to send messages to other ones. If I had not said squid, you didn't know what a squid or octopus was, you'd think I was bonkers. Is it just something that we don't understand yet? I think with all the new things that have been found and are being found out, I think it's quite ignorant to dismiss anything at this point, if I'm honest with you. You've got to be very open-minded.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the things that people were saying couldn't exist 50 and 60 years ago and people scoffed at that exist now, these things that we're talking about today, it could be discovered the reason why they can do these things in 50 or 60 years. And people might look at a podcast like this and say, they were onto something. They were nearly there. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. But,
well, if you look at the Tasmanian devil as an animal, its habitat has been on a small island that's been uninhabited or relatively uninhabited until the last 300 years. So the Aborigines are our closest link humanly back to ancient man, aren't they? So they say. So maybe it's the same with like the Tasmanian devil. So maybe, in my experience with animals that have self-illuminating lights, they're usually used as lures. It's like the anglerfish. Yeah. It's something that they flash to bring in the prey. So maybe that's what it was used for originally. Maybe, I mean, if you saw that on a night, you'd be quite, you wouldn't be right happy about looking at it, would you? Even though it's only a little Tasmanian devil. You know what I mean? If you didn't know what it was.
Bad-tempered, aren't they? They're really bad-tempered. Well, they're called devils.
Are they?
Yeah. You hear the racket they make, the noise they make? Crikey. It scares the life out of you. You see glowing eyes and that growling noise they make. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's crazy. So did you cover any reports of self-illuminating eyes when you were doing Elusive, Chris?
I'm just trying to think whether I did. I don't think so. I might be wrong about that, but I don't think so. I mean, I think I've spoke to a few people about this. Someone mentioned about if you imagine, you know, how we use infrared cameras and we use infrared torches to see, is the illuminating eye a way of seeing in the dark? Is it projecting a beam to see?
Yeah,
and that's what the illumination is.
It could well be.
Other than that, yeah.
What about the other phenomena reported then? Dare we call it phenomenon? Our Dean's just bust our bubble. No, what about the other phenomena that's reported when these things are seen? Lights in forests, light form phenomena. Anybody got any views on that?
It all seems connected. There's lots of accounts worldwide where a ball of light's seen, and then there's an encounter with a Bigfoot or a dogman, like I was saying about the cats. So they all seem to have this concurrent connection. What it means, no idea, but it's all very interesting, and yeah, it seems to happen one after the other. So
yeah, can I just bring something in here while we're talking about cats?
It's
just kind of loose stuff and kind of general, and I don't think any graphic detail is required. But what's your thoughts on a few years ago they had this spate of domestic cats being killed, but they never actually caught anybody for it, and it was called the Croydon. They dubbed it the Croydon cat killer, but it actually spread from outside the Croydon area into other areas. So anybody got any thoughts on that?
It covered a massive area eventually, didn't it? I mean, people might know more about this than me. I started writing a book about this with Steph Young. My screen's just gone black. Oh, it's back again. And for whatever reason, we've not continued with it for a while. We probably will pick it up. But looking into it, it was incredible. It weren't just cats though, Les. It were cats, it were deer, it were badger, it were fox. Multiple animals in a night in and around this area. And they were getting returned in most instances onto the doorsteps of the owners with sections of their body removed, parts of their tail removed. The Croydon, and they blamed it on a man, some sick individual. Oh, has anybody tried domestic cats? Imagine being in area and trying to befriend a domestic cat that's out on its own in wild. It essentially becomes feral until it goes home. We know occasionally cats come up to you and they purr and they're happy, but they're quite evasive of people. Yet the Croydon cat killer, the numbers ran into thousands, and it happened over a number of years, didn't it? And I think they said they'd caught somebody eventually, but I'm not sure. That was a really strange one. But I've just jumped into a question I saw in chat there, and he's not put it in capital letters, but it's a friend of Truth Proof. It's Josh Turner. And hi, Josh. Great to see you here, mate. I mean, anybody wanting to have a look at an absolutely amazing YouTube channel, go on to Josh's Paranormal Roundtable, because Josh can talk for hours on all aspects, on all levels. Brilliant. Good to see you. But Josh says, let's have a look. These creatures are not octopus. They're awesome undiscovered creatures. So that's Josh's opinion. And I know Josh has been on Truth Proof live stream and give us his account of what he saw. And it kind of displayed lots of aspects that don't make it sound like a creature. I mean, the smoke that were coming off it, or the mist and things. But if I'd have realised you were coming in, Josh, you could have come on here. But yeah, fire away, guys.
Paul, I was going to say, just I need to clear that up with regards to the squid octopus. The point I was making with regards to that was that the things that we don't understand now, I just want to emphasize that will we understand them in the future? I think that just saying to Josh, that's the point I was making with that. Hello, Josh, by the way. Superb show. I hope you don't mind me saying that. No, really good show.
And yeah, there's tons of great channels out there, you know. I mean, and people should just jump on them. I mean, there's the 401 files. There's Chris Turner's channel. Come on, Chris, you're starting that up again. What's yours called?
Last Transmission,
Hello?
it's called. I'll get ready. Sorry, man.
Chris was nodding away, I think. Is that a stressful 3 days?
No,
Tiring 3 days.
It's been hard graft. Right, have we any questions, Les?
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question now then, and because you might get something at the other side of it as well. On alien abductions, this one's from David 𝗧𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵. On alien abductions, do the panel think there's any truth that a deal was done with aliens to turn a blind eye to them in exchange for their technology?
Have you heard that talked about before? Have you heard that, or I've read about it, that it was it with the US mainly? There was an agreement made that they could abduct a certain amount of people a year in exchange, then they wouldn't get mentioned. We, the human side, would deny any of it was going on, and that was in exchange for their technology. I've heard that before. Sorry, I just wanted to sort of say that. Yeah,
me personally, and I could be absolutely way off here, but I just think why? Why would they need to strike a deal with us? And I mean, somebody might have a reason for that, but I can't think of it. If they can actually get any of our resources whenever they want, dematerialize and pass through walls and end up in people's bedrooms, you know, and just jumping away from it briefly, because I don't want to overtake everybody here. Then we talk about abductions where they say it's a MILAB, a military abduction. If they're real, why haven't we used them to dispose of problem people that are causing world kind of chaos? But don't want to go down that road. Let's just stay with where we've gone. I did it. I set it off. I know I did. But any ideas? Any views besides mine and Dean's?
Go on, then. What was the question again?
I knew you'd lost the question there,
yeah.
Reverend. Yeah, it's about did we exchange allow aliens to abduct people in exchange for technology of theirs? Yeah,
so Eisenhower was supposed to have had a meeting with the aliens after the war, and there's supposed to have been an agreement made whereby we got the technology, they got to take a certain amount of population, and it was all to do with the nuclear the bombs that were dropped. It was supposed to have had some ripple effect across the universe, which affected their planets more than it affected ours, so it needed to stop. And it was all part of that. So they give us the technology to help advance society, but instead we did that to a degree, but we also developed weapons more. Supposedly the nuclear weapons around the world are disarmed and not able to fire, if you follow that theory. So I think it's Eisenhower's granddaughter. I think she's been talking. She's come out and spoken quite a bit about it. So she's quite interesting.
Yeah, anybody else?
Well, here's the question: Would those in power hang the rest of us out to dry?
Oh yeah.
Well, it happens every day, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, there's your answer. You know.
Yeah.
I do wonder, going back.
Let's be honest. It's not like that. Go on, sorry, Dean.
No, I don't go on, Chris.
No, I was just about to say, I think was Eisenhower in charge anyway? Regardless, you know, there were guys behind. Yeah, you know. So
well, if you take the overall history of different tribes, it's been going on as long as it's been spoken about. So yeah, they're already doing it.
In relation to that, I hope you don't mind me coming in. I'm kind of along with what Paul said. These, whatever you want to call them, ETs, aliens, interdimensional beings, whatever it may be, they're visiting us, which means they've got technology way beyond ours. They're not going to strike a deal with us. They're going to tell us what we're doing. Ultimately, if that's what they are, they're so far ahead of us. They're not going to do any deals with us whatsoever. We've got nothing we can offer them. And if they want to take things, they'll take them whether we like it or not. Because if you can either cross a dimension or cross space and time, millennia and millions of light years, you know, I'm pretty sure to deal with a planet of us, our intelligence level, it's, as I think I've heard described before, why would they stop and look at the worms on the planet? We're probably on the same level to them. Why would they want to interact with us? They could just wipe us off like that. So I understand that it's been put around, and a lot of these things probably start with some truth in them. But I find it hard to think that a deal would be struck, or maybe it was struck, and things were advanced very quickly. But I just don't understand, or I can't myself. Just by the way, it's not something I really know much about, so I'm sort of mulling it over now at this time. So I don't know much about it. I'm just guessing at stuff here, but I just struggle to see why an either interdimensional or something from the other side of a galaxy would come here and strike a deal with us. I don't understand why they would do that.
I would agree.
Well, as 𝗣𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵 says, he says, if you're dealing with a species that's deconstructed reality, then they don't necessarily have to make any deals with anybody. I mean, here I am. I mean, I should probably point out that it doesn't mean that they're all malevolent. There may well be some benevolent species out there, or humanoid species out there from the future or something. Maybe, who knows? Anything's possible, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of the view that what we term as alien life is life that's been here a lot longer than us. It hasn't come in. That's just what we're told. You know what I mean? So what we see and what's going on, yeah, it's here. Which then changes what you can put that to what Dean was saying. It kind of gives that a different twist. You know what I mean? So that's my view on that.
Are they infinitely more wise than what we are? Have they already transcended all our moral quarrels, that they're all in one agreement now? Or could it be the other way? They're very malevolent. It's something to ponder about.
Well, I mean, my understanding of how the Earth and the universe is we're trapped in a magnetic field that we can't get out of, and very little can come through. So if that's the case, which a lot NASA say it quite a lot, nobody mentions it in big terms, but it's stated quite a lot that you can't leave low Earth orbit. Right. So maybe they're just as trapped here as we are. It's just that we're told a complete fairy tale, and we've built on that because we've had no other starting block, if you know what I mean. So
yeah.
Right, we've got unless Chris Wright's got any views on that, we'll move to some questions.
No, it's fine. Crack on.
8 minutes left. All right, Chris.
Yeah, just to pull back to the cat killer, Adam Sander just makes a statement. He says, "I have cases of the cat killer in Hungary and Slovakia." So it's not just.
Right. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's macabre, but it's fascinating, and how anybody could think that. Anyway.
Paul, can I speak to you about that after this, if you don't mind? Sorry. I'd like to speak to you after this, if you don't mind about that.
Yeah, I just like to get a little thing in here. It's about, I don't know. I've been thinking about the alien abductions and what people say when they've gone into either regression or they've got vivid memories of where there was, i.e., on a craft. But a lot of them come back saying the same thing. A lot of them come back and say, I was shown a video of the devastation of the Earth in 20 whatever, and we've got to do something about it. Any thoughts on that?
Well, giving us a message kind of thing. That
yeah.
I suppose it is a theme that a lot of people come back with. I don't know. No, I haven't got any thoughts on it, to be honest, Les, apart from, you're right. That seems to be a common theme that people talk about after regression or after interaction with these so-called aliens. But I don't know. Are they our gods then? Because if they're so all-powerful and all-knowing, why aren't they changing it? Why are they showing us the errors of our ways, if for want of a better word? And why are they showing? Why are they showing Joe Blogg in his caravan on top of cliffs? Why aren't they showing world leaders this? Because I can't change it if they show it me. So why? Do you know what I mean? Why aren't they people in authority, the people who could actually make a change? Why aren't they stamping those images in their heads instead of? Is it
because the people that are in authority are the ones feeding us the lies, so they want the masses to rise up against the leaders? Is it because, as we're talking about how the government lies and how we're kept in control, Is it maybe they're trying to encourage the masses, the people, to rise up against the government? Have we got a tyrannical government? Are all governments tyrannical?
Yeah.
Many people would argue most definitely. And is it maybe that they're trying to get Joe Public to get talking with the eventual hope that will rise up against the masters to...
If you look at it in terms of the religious and alien thing both being the same, then we have free will. So we have to show that we want to change before they will help us. You know what I mean? Before they'll back us, as it were. So maybe that's what it's about. But they all seem to have. It's interesting how many accounts are so similar. Yeah, it's fascinating.
We've got Les, 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I've only got one question left on my screen here, and it's from midnight, and it's to everyone on the panel. What would you research if the truth came out in all the subjects? I guess that's what they're talking about. What would you research? Because I know most of your research is on here. If the truth came out, would it be UFOs, for example? What would you focus on as individuals?
Good point. If
there was more truth, what would come out? I guess this is what they're meaning. If there's more truth,
I still, for me personally, and I'll just keep it real brief, I think it's multi-phenomena research. So I'd still throw it out there, and I'd still be obviously looking into every aspect of it. I wouldn't be pigeonholing myself personally. Yeah. Obviously, that a level of truth might come out that steers me in that direction, so I might be wrong. Right, I'll shut up.
And I know the Revenant's doing some research and bringing some YouTube material forward in the future, aren't you?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So what would you focus on if you got into an area where there was more things to latch on to, where there was more information out there?
When it comes to finding out the truth, I'd want the names and addresses of the liars. That's what I'd want. So.
Yeah, emails.
What about you, Chris? Right? Any views on that? What would you be looking into?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved the UFO side of things, but I've also, obviously, with the work we've been doing, really got interested in the cryptid side. And I was a big Bigfoot, believer, but I think really for me, it's the Dogman stuff. I just think it's just so scary. If it is a reality, that it's I think it's just vastly. I think she's got a big scope to it. I really do, and I think it's a dangerous thing to get into, really, and it could be the most stupidest thing to get into, but it really fascinates me.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? 3 minutes. Keep it brief. Chris, Dean, anybody?
I think the truth's a funny thing, isn't it? I think it has to be attained individually. I think it's got to be your truth. All of us, the 6 of us here, and we've probably all got different opinions on what the truth is, and we're certainly not going to get the truth from that lot. So that's the last place we should be looking. I mean, it is sort of interesting when your ears pick up, doesn't it, when you hear the mainstream talking about this subject. But the one thing we should be doing when they're talking is muting it. It's just put mute and I'll turn it off, because the longer I look at this stuff, and I look at a lot of varied subjects, I think it goes back to that question someone was asking about the bigger picture and there's something big coming. I agree with that. I think whatever that thing is has been coming and it's been prophesized. I'm not religious at all, but I get to, in my job, I get to look at different elements from different religions and ancient texts and books, and I am paying more attention to that stuff now. I really am. There's something in it, and I'm just from the outside now. I look out and what I'm seeing in the world, and it appears to be a light and dark situation, and maybe that's what this phenomenon is. Maybe there's more of that coming out from the shadows.
So it's coming. Is it coming in our lifetime? I mean, I've probably only got about 10 years to live, but
probably less if you keep drinking Guinness.
I'm a firm believer it will. I'm a very firm believer it will. I'm a very firm believer it's going to come soon, and I don't know why, but I think AI is going to play a very big part in it, and things like quantum computers. It's going to accelerate learning very quickly, and we're going to go in directions where technology and personal technology, things people can have at home, are going to be so good that it will remove the need for you to look towards the government for your answers. You'll be able to provide yourself your own answers, and it'll just accelerate everything so much that it will steer us towards the point that Chris is talking about. And again, Chris, coming back to you, I'm not religious at all, but I am and I'm not. I believe that there's things that have gone. I believe a lot of what religion tells us, but I think unfortunately religion's been slightly moved around and twisted to be used to control people as well.
Well, that's going to have to be the last word from. I just want to say on behalf of Truth Proof, I don't know what Liz is going to say after this. Reverend Chris, Dean, thank you, and I'm out of here. Thank you very much, guys.
Have a nice evening. Good talking to you all.
Everybody. Thanks for your participation, and really enjoyed the show.
I want to do it again.
With that, we've got to say thank you to 𝗧𝗿𝘂𝘁𝗵 for sending the questions through and moderating tonight. And that's it. We're out of here, as Paul said. We're going to end the broadcast now. See you all next time.
Thank you. Let's do it again.